I'm Charlotte Stuart. As an author of humorous mysteries, I spend a lot of time thinking about what tickles a reader's funny bone. Why does one reader find a book hilarious while another reader of the same book considers it silly and sets it aside? What I believe is that it's not necessarily the quality of the writing, although that obviously plays a role. Rather, a large part of the reader's response depends on the innate qualities the reader brings to the experience. I'm not here to defend any particular type of humor. Rather, I have a twofold goal. First, to help readers make better choices in selecting humorous mysteries, and second, to help authors better define their subgenre. I've broken my talk into two parts. In the first, I talk about why we don't all laugh at the same things. In the second, I describe 5 categories or subgenres of humorous mysteries that align with our individual preferences. In order to understand what the reader brings to the reading experience, I'm going to first look at reactions to humor and then at why we don't all laugh at the same things. Humor is a psychological tickle that can make us laugh out loud or giggle or snicker. We have all sorts of phrases to describe our reactions to humor. We shake with laughter. We are convulsed with laughter. We double up with laughter. We are left in stitches, die laughing, roll in the aisles, bust a gut, are cracked up. There's even a word for a hearty laugh punctuated by a snort on the inhale, snortle. But there are also inner smiles for the amusing but not belly laugh level of humor. We might find ourselves grinning while reading a passage that we don't find hilarious, but there's still something that tickles our funny bone. Then there's our response to dark humor, the grimace, smirk, or head shake in disbelief. In the real world, we don't laugh or even smile when we hear about a murder. But there are a lot of mysteries that use humor as either the driving force or as an integral part of the story's structure. Not only does humor engage readers by making characters more realistic and situations more memorable, it can provide relief when things start to get too heavy. There are even some physical benefits. You've all heard the phrase, laughter is the best medicine. The reason for this is that laughter has some very positive impacts on both your body and your state of mind. This is even true if you're not laughing out loud, but simply smiling. Smiling is a natural antidepressant. Apparently, by triggering certain facial muscles, smiling can trick your brain into thinking you're happy. Some research suggests that by simply smiling, you can reduce your heart rate and speed up recovery from stress. In fact, there's even evidence that forcing a smile can boost your mood and your happiness level. As an author, I'm not trying to trick readers into feeling good by using humor, but it makes me smile to think that that's a possibility, and that in turn makes me happy. Humans start developing a sense of humor as early as 6 weeks old. This is true across cultures, although there are some identifiable cultural differences in humor based on context and social mores. Researchers have also discovered that humor is present in the animal kingdom. We've all seen pictures of primates baring their teeth in laughter. Most dog owners think their dogs smile. Crows, parrots, elephants, and dolphins have also been mentioned in research on humor. The most disturbing study I read referred to rats giggling while being tickled or while at play, which leads me to ask, who tickles rats? And maybe instead of setting traps, I could ask them to step outside for a game of hide and seek and then slam the door shut behind them. We all have the ability to laugh, but we don't all end up laughing at the same things. Have you ever told a joke and had it fall flat? Have you politely laughed at someone else's attempt at humor? If you go online, you will find lists of the different kinds of humor: slapstick, self-deprecating, deadpan, sarcastic, physical, surreal. Some of the lists are quite long and include classifications you might not be aware of. Take, for example, this visual pun. I bought a pair of gloves. Both were lefts. On the one hand, they were great. On the other, just not right. Or this situational incongruity. A Griffith Park tree dedicated to pop star George Harrison, an avid gardener during his last days in LA, has been destroyed by beetles. These detailed classifications are helpful for analyzing humor in general, but they don't tell you why an individual might prefer one over another. I think of it as similar to our personal response to weather conditions. For example, what's uncomfortably warm to one person may seem just right to another. It's not the temperature, but the response to it that varies from individual to individual. One thing that influences what we find humorous is how our brain is wired. Personality differences also play a role. As a management consultant and trainer, I got certified in a wide range of assessments that I could administer to help people understand and adapt to differences between team members. I'm going to take a high-level look at two of those assessments that explain an individual's response to humor: the brain dominance profile and the Myers-Briggs inventory. Before I explain the two assessments, here are some pictures of me talking about them to an audience using old-fashioned hands-on charts. Sorry you can't see the faces of the audience members because some of them are smiling. Pop psychology has oversimplified the brain dominance profile assessment by only acknowledging two categories, left and right. Ned Herman, researcher and author on creativity, developed a more comprehensive system for measuring thinking preferences. His approach divides the brain into 4 quadrants: upper left or analytic, lower left or detailed sequential, upper right or intuitive visual, and lower right, feeling-based interpersonal. Perhaps the most significant thing about his research is that it suggests that we aren't limited to using just one quadrant of our brain. In fact, most of us use more than one lobe. I've listed the statistics about this in the lower left-hand, detailed, sequential side of the slide. Only 7% are single dominant, 60% double, 30% triple, and 3% quadruple dominant. These are the people who can do math problems while chewing gum and writing the great American novel. There are a couple of ways to illustrate quadrant preferences without taking a formal assessment. One is by simply considering your personal listening habits. In general, the left side of your brain takes in language and processes details, whereas the right side function is more visual, abstract, and people-oriented. By looking at the 4 quadrants and asking yourself about your personal listening habits, what kinds of things you listen for, you can make a good guess at which quadrants you use the most. You can also make a pretty good guess about the profiles of people you talk to on a regular basis. Do they get impatient when you try to share details? Do they ask for more specifics when you offer big picture overviews? Do they gloss over references to feelings and relationships? You get the idea. Here's one fun fact. People who live together over a long period of time tend to have complementary brain profiles. That means that together they have a whole brain. All 4 quadrants are represented. But it also suggests some listening challenges. Another way to make a self-assessment is by checking preferences for comic strips. I'll demonstrate that in the next slide. First, I want to share an experience I had some years ago. I was browsing a book on brain preference and came to a section on cartoons. I wasn't reading explanations or captions, which fits with my brain profile. I was just looking at the pictures. And I wasn't finding any cartoons that seemed particularly funny to me. Then I came upon a series I liked, and I paused long enough to read the commentary. That's when I discovered the cartoons were categorized according to the 4 quadrants. What I was laughing at fit my profile perfectly. Let me show you a few examples. See if your quadrant preferences are similar to those you identified for your listening habits. Comic strips aren't as ubiquitous as they used to be, but hopefully most of my examples are familiar. Looking at the quadrants, ask yourself, which would you want to read first? Which, if any, would you not bother reading? More specifically, try ranking them from 1 to 4 according to the comics you like the most to the ones you like the least. Your preferences should align with your brain profile. Upper left analytic, lower left detailed. Upper right visual intuitive, lower right interpersonal. Although such a simple approach obviously doesn't tell you how many quadrants are dominant for you, it does provide an indication of what your brain dominance profile probably looks like. It is estimated that more than 50 million people have taken the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Although some contend it isn't as accurate as other assessments because it was developed through clinical observation rather than controlled research, in combination with the brain preference assessment, it confirms that what we find funny has a lot to do with who we are. If you haven't taken the Myers-Briggs inventory, this slide will not be terribly meaningful to you. But if you know your type, you will be able to match type with humor preferences. Whether you're an E or extroverted or an I introverted, it's the other elements of type that drive you toward a particular category of humor. The descriptions for the top and bottom categories are relatively straightforward: dry, ironic, or edgy, versus zany, playful, or outrageous. The middle or adaptive label suggests the degree of influence the humor of others has on the types listed. A study done in the psych department at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, concluded most of us are likely to laugh if others around us are laughing. It's the reason sitcoms used canned laughter. Those with the middle types are more inclined than most to laugh when other people are laughing and share humor they think others will find funny. When I explain my matrix in part 2, you will see how these types relate to specific categories of humorous mysteries. As I said initially, my twofold goal in making this presentation is to help readers choose humorous mysteries that best align with their innate preferences and to better define the subgenre for authors. For now, let me leave you with this thought. If Plan A fails, remember that you have 25 letters left. This is a list of my mysteries and a few of their book covers. Please check out my website at www.charlottestewart.com for more information. Thank you for spending time with me today watching this video.